It has been a hot minute since the last time I updated this reading journal. In fact, it's been since August since the last time I touched this. She's looking pretty chunky, but we'll see how much chunkier she'll get by the end of this. So we're gonna go ahead and finish out my 2025 reading journal. We're first gonna start by updating my August stats. The month of August was probably my very last good reading month. I ended up reading a total of 3 books before my reading slump started to kick in September. Between last year, so 2024 and 2025, I've learned that anytime the winter time starts rolling around, for some reason my reading significantly drops, and I'm not entirely sure why. And it started pretty early on in September instead of October like it did in 2024. Nonetheless, I still read 1,149 pages, and I'm proud to say I only bought 3 books this month, which kind of feels like it's a lie, but August was like a lifetime ago at this point. Everything I read was in a physical copy, and I read 65% of those books in fantasy, and then 35% were romance. And those books being The Love Hypothesis, Tales of Arcana Fortune, and The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. Now, I thought I was complete with this, but then I realized that I didn't fill out which days I actually read. So we're just going to quickly fill that out. Alright, now that it's all complete, we can move on to our first spread of The Love Hypothesis. Okay, it has been nearly 6 months, so like half a year since I read The Love Hypothesis, and low-key, I don't really remember much, but it was an intriguing story. After having some time to think about how I would rate the book, I came to a consensus of 3.5 stars out of 5 stars. Mostly because it was a good story, but I don't think it really fully deserved that 4-star rating that I normally give most books when they're really good. It just didn't really do it for me. Maybe even now I would bump it down to a 3-star instead of 3.5. 3.5 feels like it's being a little generous. There was nothing really wrong with the book. It just felt like it was missing something. Or maybe I'm just too much of an avid fantasy reader and I just cannot read normal modern day books. And I'm learning that I much prefer the fantasy novels over the, I think they're called contemporary romances, like the ones that are set in modern day. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say without spoiling anything. Do I plan to read her other 2 books in the series? Yes, eventually, but they're not super high on my TBR at the moment. Okay, she's all complete, very cute, very simple, very fresh. Yeah, not much else to say. Here is the reading dump that I did while reading the book. Don't read it if you don't want to know any spoilers. And now moving on to the Tales of Arcana Fortune. Now, this is an indie book and it was actually pretty good. The concept was new and different and I really enjoyed it. I got a little bit confused towards the end. Either I was reading the book a little too fast to comprehend what was going on, or maybe we were getting ahead of ourselves a little bit with the writing. I'm not entirely sure. It could be reader error. I can tell you right now, I am not a professional book reviewer. Now, this next thing might get me into some hot water if the wrong audience finds this video. So as a conservative, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about supporting authors who stand against what I believe. I don't know if I should separate their art from their beliefs and still enjoy what they make, or if I'm still inherently supporting something that I personally do not support by still purchasing this author's book. Does anybody understand what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know, was separating art from the artist a thing before? Have those two things just merged together over time and now that's the new norm? I'm not entirely sure, because she does have a second book coming out for this series, but I'm not entirely sure if I want to continue this series if I know what she stands for and those things are against what I believe. Of course, all of this came to light during the whole Charlie Kirk thing, so yeah, I'm not really sure how to go about this. But I did rate the book a 4.5 stars. So, and here she is all complete. I actually really love how this turned out. It's giving very cozy fantasy. And then here's my reading dump for it. Again, don't read if you don't want spoilers. And now we're moving on to The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. Okay, so unfortunately, I was starting to enter a reading slump as I was trying to read this book during August, and so I wasn't fully submerged into the story as I would have liked. But after looking back on it, I really did enjoy the book. There was lots of great visuals, different elements to the story that I just absolutely love. And I really wish there was more to this story. Like, I need a little bit more of these characters. And you best believe I gave this book a 5-star rating. But that's all the commentary I can give on this book because my memory is completely shot. Alright, here we go. It's all complete. I love how the colors came out with this one. And then here we have the reading dump. You know the drill. Don't read if you don't want spoilers. And now we move on to September. And this is the month where everything completely fell off the rails. Okay, I did not even finish one book, but I still included my single book for this month, even though I mainly read it and finished it in October. But I couldn't pass up leaving this theme completely blank because this was my favorite theme that I did. It was heavily inspired by all the Asian fantasy stories that I had been reading. So yeah, barely even one book finished this month. 9 books bought, which is a crazy contrast, and then 165 pages read, even though the one book was 500 pages long. Here's all my sad statistics filled out, and now we can move on to the Renegade series. So actually, this is my second time rereading Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Last year, I reread the Lunar Chronicles because it had been 8 years since I last read them, and it's about the same amount of time since the last time I read the Renegade series, and I really missed this universe, so I just jumped right back into it, even though it took me like 3 months to finish the 3 books. Now, something that completely did not register in my 12 or 13-year-old brain was that Hugh and Simon were gay, and they were Adrian's adoptive parents. Somehow that just completely flew over my head. I did not know what gay was at the time and did not affect the storyline whatsoever to me. But when I went back earlier in the summer to reminisce on the characters, somehow it hit me like a truck that Hugh and Simon were gay, and I was like, what? They were gay? I was like devastated. My world just completely shattered, and I viewed this book so differently after that. I was like, how did I not know this when I was in middle school? How did this completely fly over my head? Okay, so I didn't have an October cover page set up, so we'll come back and set that up later. Anyways, back to my rant. Everything that I had just mentioned are not spoilers, by the way. It's common knowledge to know that Adrian is adopted by 2 dads. But now, after having that information finally click in my head, I felt so conflicted about it. Because do I let this completely consume me and ruin the entire book series for me? Or do I just ignore it and pretend like that doesn't exist and still continue to enjoy the book? Because I don't like certain real world stuff following into my fantasy novels. I'm there to read a book to escape the real world, not for the real world to follow me into my escape. Anyways, Arch Enemies was also read for a second time, but of course as soon as I was finished reading it, I completely forgot everything that happened in it. Also, no November cover page setup, so we'll go back and finish it later. Alright, now for Supernova. Literally the best book out of the 3 in the trilogy, hands down. I've reread this one specifically 4 times in a row now. Yes, 4 times. 2 of those times I reread when my phone was taken away as a teenager, because this was the only book that I owned that had everything that I wanted for entertainment. The love, the drama, the sacrifice, the betrayal, it was all in there and it was perfect. All the entertainment one needs when your phone is gone. Alright, my Renegades rant is coming to an end. I will never cease to stop recommending this book to other people. It is criminally underrated and I never see anybody talking about this series. So if you haven't read this series, go read it. You will thank me later. Now, coming off of that Renegade high, we managed to squeeze in one more book for November. Kind of, sort of. It severely bled into December's reads, and it's a completely different genre. This one was a gothic academia romantasy. That was a mouthful. And this was my first time really diving into this type of genre, and it was very interesting. And it was perfect for November too. As you can see, I rated this book 4.5 stars, and I absolutely love how this spread came together with the colors. Now, as you can see, we are at the very end of this journal. So, it's time to pull out my overflow journal. But before that, let's go back and take a look at the cover pages that we haven't finished. I did both October and November off screen. October came out okay, but I absolutely am jealous of how I did November. I'm upset that I didn't get to sit there and enjoy the cover page for November. But now it's time to move into the overflow journal. Alright, and then here is the cover page for this journal, and I did this one a while ago. And then here is my December page. Okay, so we stepped it up in December a little bit. Instead of barely finishing one book, we managed to finish 2 books. Granted, one of those was a novella, but a win is a win. Reading 7 Deadly Thorns did bleed into my December reads a little bit, so that kind of threw me off a little bit when I was doing one of the pie charts when it was time to fill out which genres I read. So instead of it being half fantasy and half romance, it ended up having a little chunk for gothic academia romantasy. So that was my bad. I could not be bothered to fix it. Alright, the December page is all finished, and now we can move on to our Good Spirits review. Okay, so Good Spirits might actually be my favorite contemporary romance novel that I have ever read. Though it can be described more like a contemporary paranormal comedy romance novel. There's a lot to it. And I think that's why I really liked this one more than any other romance novel I've ever read. It's not quite a copy and paste, and it had a little bit of a fantasy element in it with the ghosts. Oh, and this is the first time I've ever given a contemporary romance novel a full-on 5-star rating. Normally they're between 4 and 4.5, but B.K. Borison hit it out of the park with this one. And the comedy was top tier. If a romance novel has absolutely zero comedy in it, I don't want it. Alright, and then here is Good Spirits all complete. Here is the reading dump for it, and now we're moving on to Spectacular. So with this one, I don't have much to say considering it is a novella. I don't even have a reading dump for this one. So I'm just gonna keep all the decorations and review onto one page. I ended up rating this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I mean, it's a novella, what can I say? Nothing too crazy happens, though I'm not entirely sure about the whole mystery aspect of it. Or maybe I'm just a Caraval hater, because when I did first read Caraval, when it first came out ever, like there was no legendary or finale, I kind of did not like it. But aside from that, I was literally reading this book up until there was 4 minutes left before the New Year's Eve countdown. I was committed to finish this before the year ended. Anyways, I digress. And it is now time for the final flip through. I think my favorite book review spread in this video has to be for 7 Deadly Thorns. Something about the way the colors and the way everything is placed on that page is absolute perfection and so pleasing to the eye. And then my favorite monthly stats spread has to be for September, the one that looks like a Japanese structure. I put so much time and effort into that page and it came out beautifully. I would say the November monthly stat page probably comes into a close second from September. Before we end this video, we need to fully complete my reading journal. And the final page left to do is my top 10 books for 2025. What's funny is the most difficult part about this was actually picking or finding books that I enjoyed enough to include in the top 10. I know I had a top 4 or 5 books for sure, but I wasn't entirely sure what other books to include because they weren't as top tier as my top 5 were. There were a couple books that were tied for ranking number, so I kind of just arranged them the way I felt like they went in. And here they are all ranked. What I find super funny is that my top 4 books, majority of them are Asian fantasies, while the other one is a more historical fantasy. And honestly, all 4 of them were so good. It was really hard to choose between The Floating World and The Scorpion and the Night Blossom for the number 1 spot because they were both absolutely amazing and hit it out of the park. Like, they were 6-star reads, both of them were. Same with The Rose Bargain. I absolutely devoured Rose Bargain on top of that. And with that, this video comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.